course of the 1973 rally will be similar to that of the previous editions, with some modifications. The course of concentration has not been abolished but reduced on each route to an average of 3,500 to 2,500 kilometers. Before the finish of the concentration in Monaco, a first special stage will determine a first provisional scratch, which everyone had been wanting for a long time. The organization has kept Warsaw, Athens, Oslo, Frankfurt, Reims, Monte Carlo, Glasgow, and Almeria. Lisbon has been abandoned in favor of Rome. 278 teams will start the race on Friday the 19th of January. Rome, with 69 competitors, and Monaco, with 51 competitors, are the most popular, unlike Athens and Glasgow, which have 6 and 12 cars respectively. Each of the routes of the concentration route is about 2,500 kilometers long without any major difficulties. However, 5 crews will be disqualified for crossing a solid line or failing to respect a stop sign. There was only one retirement, that of Marie-Claude Beaumont, Opel Ascona Group 2, who had to retire 200 kilometers after leaving Reims with a water pump problem. At the end of the route, shortly before Digne, all the competitors regroup before competing in the 17 kilometers of the first special stage, the Col du Corabin. The first crews found a slightly icy road and a few snowflakes, and had to use studded tires. Jean-Claude Andruet was then the fastest of the Alpine team. 1 to 2 hours later, water had replaced the ice on many portions, and a much lighter nailing was adopted. Able to use all their power, the Ford Escorts of Hannu Mikkola and Timo Mäkinen achieved the best performances. Starting an hour later, Sandro Munari in his Lancia Fulvia, despite a slightly more slippery road, managed to equal Mikkola's time, with the two men taking the lead of the rally 8 seconds ahead of Mäkinen. The crews reached Monaco without incident and would benefit from a rest day. The competitors set off from Monaco on Thursday morning to face the 1,500 kilometers of the common course. The first special of the day, 25 kilometers long, was snow-covered, and everyone was adopting the high-studding tires. The Alpines dominated, with Jean-Luc Terrier and Jean-Claude Andruet achieving the same time 12 seconds ahead of their teammate Ove Anderson. The next special is the Col de Perty, 20 kilometers, where the climb is covered in snow, a handicap for the first crews, as the starts are given in order of race numbers, who will have to make the track. Mikkola took advantage of this. Best time, he strengthened his lead over Munari, now at 38 seconds.
Le classement est obtenu par addition petit a des pénalisations encourues par minute pour le parcours de concentration, 60 secondes par minute pour le parcours commun et l'épreuve complémentaire Monaco-Monaco. À la fin de chacune des 3 épreuves, les voitures seront soumises à un contrôle technique rigoureux.
Interactualité Magazine édition du soir, présentée par Dominique Bromberger.
Bonsoir. Kissinger en route vers Washington après 3h45 d'entretien avec le Ducto avenue Kléber ce matin. Nixon pourrait annoncer ce soir la conclusion d'un accord sur le Vietnam.
We at Little Bear Slots followed most of the tips by Swift Slots to enhance our old team slot Alpine Renault A110. We highly recommend to you slot enthusiasts to visit their site at swift16.co.uk. This model is the replica of the car driven to victory by Jean-Claude Andruet and co-pilot Biche during the 1973 Monte Carlo rally. Out of the box, we can see that the aft tires are rubbing against the body, thus deteriorating performance. The aft axle has been completely overhauled, including a slot.it 27 teeth crown gear and 48mm axles from the same brand. Plastic wheels from the stock car have been replaced with aluminum wheels from Staffs. And new bronze bushings from slot.it have been installed. Once again, strictly respecting the Swift Slots book. LED tape has been installed for ballast as this car will compete in the no magnet category. Please also note the bushings on the front axle to minimize lateral play. Front of the chassis has been trimmed out to avoid interference with the body. The 2 body posts have been reinforced with metallic tubing. The original team slot motor was kept and secured to the chassis using thin ballast tape for golf clubs. Chassis has been fixed to the body with slot.it screws which provide an extra play. To finish up, paint detailing work has been applied to the hood, lights, and interior. The all-white figures of the pilot and co-pilot have been touch-up for a more realistic look. With its staff's wheels and slot.it tires, the Alpine now delivers a great and aggressive look. Ready for track testing.
In Ardèche, 45 kilometers long. The wind has created enormous snowdrifts. Once again, the first to set off, Darniche, co-driven by Alain Mahé, is in difficulty in the fresh snow. With about half the competitors having passed, a competitor's Ford Capri crashed quite violently. The co-driver was injured, and the event was interrupted to allow time for emergency services. As the wind continued to blow, the snowdrifts formed again, and the stage once again became impassable for rally cars, especially since impatient spectators had returned to their cars, making the situation inextricable. Andruet's Alpine, which set the fastest time, now led the way 13 seconds ahead of Munari. The next special took place on dry roads, so the competitors switched to racing tires. Darniche set the best time, 20 seconds ahead of Andruet, who went out onto snow thrown by spectators. In the dry, the Alpines proved irresistible and achieved the 6 best times, while the Escorts disappointed, beaten by Munari's Lancia Fulvia. Snow is back for the Saint-Bonnet-le-Foy special, 20 kilometers, where studded tires are required. On this fast section, Munari is very comfortable and sets the fastest time just ahead of Nicholas and McKinnon. Andruet attacks a little too hard and goes into a ditch. He loses almost a minute to his main rivals and narrowly retains the lead of the race. The Saint-Jean-en-Royan and Saint-Barthélemy special stages run at night were also snow-covered. In the first, dominated by Andruet, Munari set the second fastest time and moved up to second place overall. But in the next, he went off the road and retired. The Alpines now had a clear path, occupying the top 4 places. The Monte Carlo finale took place on the night of Thursday into Friday. Alpine, which held the top 3 places, had been given caution to avoid a fratricidal battle. Second, 1 minute 44 seconds behind Jean-Claude Andruet, Ove Anderson was nevertheless determined to go for the win. 7 special stages remained to be completed, and he needed to make up 15 seconds per time section. On the Col de la Madone, 18 kilometers, where the road was dry, he set the fastest time ahead of the 4 other official Alpines, gaining 19 seconds on Andruet, who preferred to play it safe. The next stage was the Col de Turini. The pass was snow-covered, and studded tires were fitted. The Col de la Couilleule special stage was held in dry conditions. McKinnon was able to harness the full power of his Escort and set the fastest time just ahead of Andruet. The latter had gained 6 seconds on Anderson, consolidating his lead. The Turini was approached a second time from the opposite direction. Just as the leading position seemed established, Andruet suffered a rear left puncture 5 kilometers into the stage. He then had 18 kilometers to go until the end of the stage. He chose to continue rather than change the tire. Despite all the skill he demonstrated in these conditions, he dropped to 3rd place, more than a minute behind Anderson. But in a dramatic turn of events, Anderson crashed in the final kilometers, a mistake that cost him 45 seconds. With 2 stages remaining, he was only 10 seconds ahead of Nicholas and 20 seconds ahead of Andruet. Nothing was decided yet. For the 3rd time, the drivers competed in the Turini. However, in the attack, the Alpine drivers were overtaken by McKinnon's Escort. Andruet gained 31 seconds from Nicolas, 34 from Anderson, and repositioned himself at the front of the race. Victory would be decided in the 18-kilometer Col de la Madone. Only 14 seconds separated the top two, and Andruet, whose Alpine had a warped brake disc, was dreading this event, which suited Anderson's driving style well.
Franchi 3 fois dans la dernière nuit de Monte Carlo, le fameux col du Turini est devenu le plus grand stade son et lumière de la course automobile. Juge de paix, épreuve de vérité, le Turini est une grand-messe dont l'ambiance rappelle celle des grands stades de football. Darniche, Terrier, Vinatier, Andruet, Nicolas vont y écrire les refrains du défi français avec la course en bleu des Alpine Renault. Elles ne pesaient même pas 700 kg, les petites 1600 S, et leurs 170 chevaux semblaient les faire rebondir d'un virage sur l'autre. 20 ans de recherche s'étaient écoulés depuis que Jean Redley avait eu cette idée géniale de concevoir une vraie voiture de course avec des éléments de série empruntés à l'une des voitures les plus populaires de tous les temps, la 4 chevaux Renault.
The Swede was going for broke. He completed the course in 15 minutes 23 seconds, smashing the record by 40 seconds. The Swede's co-driver, Jean-Claude, calculated that Andruet needed to achieve a minimum time of 15 minutes 36 seconds to win. The suspense was at its peak. When the number 18 Alpine arrived at the finish of the special, it was amazement. 15 minutes 11 seconds, 12 seconds gained on Anderson in 18 kilometers, a real feat for the Andruet Biche crew, who took the victory after many adventures.
One more checkpoint, then the finish line, however, as akin to a long night of struggling through the Siberian forests, and then to emerge directly into a lighted, crowded stadium. The sun reflected off the harbour at Monte Carlo is a welcome end to the journey, but a winning time is an even more attractive finish.
Le rallye de Monte Carlo s'achève. Premier, Andruet Biche. Deuxième, Anderson Todd. Troisième, Nicolas Vial. 6 Alpine Renault dans les 10 premières places. 20 points au classement.